Peter, that is an unbelievable result for Muslims on grass. First match ever he's won on grass. Incredible.
Incredible.
I think it is, the way that he plays.
I don't actually. I think Mooster's soon to be #1 in the world, and he's a champion. And champions figure out how to do it. And Marcus Andruska is a solid player, but he's also no grass court wizard. And so for Mooster to beat Andruska, whether it's on quicksand or ice, I'm not surprised.
Does he deserve to be #1?
Does he deserve to be #1? I don't think he's the best player in the world, but he won 14 tournaments or however many it was, and he's #1. So what can you say?
Now, Italy playing outside, temperatures barely getting above freezing out there. That was a good win for Gaudenzi coming back from 2-0 wasn't it?
2-0 and 4-1 in the third.
Yeah.
I have a feeling. Well, I didn't see the match, and it's an excellent effort. I think perhaps that match could have been a situation where Gaudenzi was nervous to start with, playing in front of the home crowd, and suddenly finds himself 2 sets and 4-1 down, and what has he got to lose? And when he won the third set tiebreaker, it looked as though Chesnikov really sort of folded.
The Netherlands dropping their #1 player and putting in Jacco Elting and Paul Haarhuis. That's a surprise, wasn't it? Dropping Richard Krajicek?
Well, yeah, I think that...
on grass, especially. I thought Krajicek, big serve.
Yeah, sure. I think Krajicek might have had a physical problem there, but I don't see the Netherlands really struggling to beat India at all.
OK. Right, there are some extreme pressures on the home team, and Switzerland will know all about that. An Olympic gold medalist and a Davis Cup runner-up in 1992, Marc Rosset can handle the special pressures that come from representing your country.
I know that I play always my best tennis when I play for my country, like in Davis Cup or in the Olympics, so I'm pretty confident. So I'm not really looking who I'm going to play, but who I'm going to play.
In the 1992 final against the USA, Rosset played and beat the then world #1, Jim Courier. It was one of the greatest triumphs of his career, inspired by the tremendous support of thousands of travelling Swiss fans who made the trip to Fort Worth, Texas.
We came there, we were very euphoric, and we came with 1,500 people, and they were shouting for two with cowbells, with you know, all their different toys and stuff. And the Americans, they thought, you know, it's a walkover, so they came like to a polo game. So they got really hammered the first day from our fans.
The Swiss may have eventually lost that 92 final, but his success means that Marc Rosset now carries the burden of the fans' raised expectations, especially when he plays in his hometown of Geneva.
My good friends, they come to watch me, and my family is here, and I think it's more pressure for me that if I was playing in Basel, there where I don't know so many people.
Swiss captain Stefan Ober is also Rosset's personal coach. He is not worried by Rosset's attitude.
It's normal he said that, but you know, because maybe he tried to find an excuse, but at the end, when he come to the court, it's more pressure, but after a few games, if he feel good and he play well, it's a big advantage for him.
Just as long as Rosset doesn't get carried away. In Australia last month, he punched an advertising board after losing a point. He injured his hand and had to miss the Australian Open.
I mean, it was not the best thing I did in my life, but I mean, I did it, and it's too late to change it.
At one point, Rosset seriously thought he would have to miss this tie too.
I was really nervous, not for the Grand Slam, because if I cannot play, it's for me. But I was pretty nervous for the people. I was really feeling embarrassing if I couldn't play here, for the people who organized, for the public, for the country.
Despite the uncertain build-up and the pressures, Rosset now looks relaxed once more as he enters the Davis Cup fray, an attitude that clearly owes a great deal to his coach and captain.
Every people give his best when he's under pressure. For me, it's my feeling.
Well, Marc Rosset coming out very shortly. We think in about 10 minutes to play Henrik Driekman to try and level the score for Switzerland. But Peter Fleming, pressure, we've talked about pressure, but why is it that some people can respond to the Davis Cup atmosphere and some people can't respond to it?
I think it has a lot to do with just what sort of people they are. Some people like high-pressure situations, and other people like the day-to-day not monotony, but just they like low-pressure situations and function better in that atmosphere. And a person like Boris Becker, for instance, really thrives in a big pressure situation. And we've seen other players who don't give their best. Ilie Nastase was an example of a player who really didn't play his best when all the pressure was on. And it'll be an interesting match today because Rosset is clearly the class player of this tie. He's been ranked in the top 10. He's now ranked about 16, I think. And Driekman and Prinnicil are both neophytes and players who really haven't made their mark yet in a big way on the tour. And yet Rosset hasn't played a match in 6 weeks. So he's coming into this match not match tight. Certainly not match tight. He's playing at home in front of all his friends, and if he were playing in front of his friends at home, having played 3 tournaments in the last 3 weeks, no problem. He'll go out and he'll give his best and he'll play well. I think he might struggle in the early going here because he's almost forgotten what it feels like to play big points.
I mean, Driekman can play on clay. I mean, he was quarter-finalist French Open in '94, got up to about 54 in the world beginning of '95, but has fallen off sharply to about 116. Although, from what we can tell, he's playing well. He won a tournament in Lipstadt last week, which was on fast carpet. But
right.
he's not going to have nothing to lose, is he? They're 1-love up. He can go out and play his own game.
No, this is a big test for Driekman as well because, as you mentioned, that Paris, or rather the French Open quarterfinal, where he had match points on Magnus Larsson, and was playing great tennis. And at the end, it was a match very similar to the one we just saw, where Driekman did get a little tight and lost that match, and he sort of disappeared for a while. And so this is the first very big, high-profile match that he's played in since that French Open quarterfinal. So it'll be interesting to see how far he's progressed.
Well, Jerry Williams spoke to Driekman earlier this week and asked him if he was surprised to suddenly find himself making a Davis Cup debut. We'll show you that after the break.
I'll tell you something. The way this point's going, get comfortable, because we could be here a while. We could be here a while, be here a while, be here a while, be here a while. Okay, Pete, just hit it in the net.
Replay the point.
Rosset and Driekman coming up very shortly, but earlier this week, Jerry Williams caught up with the young German.
Nicky told me to come here to practice with all of them, and then Becker pulled out, and so he told me I'm fourth man in the team. And then I arrived here and Michael was injured and Mark is injured or he's sick, and so he told me yesterday before the draw that I have to play the match.
I suppose that's the original dream come true.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about coming here and playing a match, and now it's like this, and I'm happy to play. I'm really looking forward to play and hope I can beat him.
Now, you have beaten certainly 2 of the biggest servers in the game. You've beaten Ivanisevic once and you beat Becker once.
Yeah.
So you can cope with a big serve, which you're going to have to do now against Rosset.
Yeah, I mean, he's serving pretty good and I have to return very well to beat him. And I mean, it's on clay court here and it's not that fast, and I hope I have a chance against him.
2 years ago at the French Open, you had match points against Larsson, Magnus Larsson, to win a place in the semi-finals. Very few people had heard of you then, but since then, we don't hear of you every week. Why is that?
I went into a small hole, I would say, after the French Open. I thought everything is coming from doing nothing, and that was my mistake.
And at the end of the year, I started to play well again, and then I was injured in my shoulder, and I had to rest for almost half a year. And that's, I mean, 95 was a really bad year for me, and I could start a Bundesliga last year, and then I went to Tokyo, had a very good week there, and didn't start so well this year in Australia, and started last week very good. I won a tournament in Lippstadt, a challenger, and now here is my chance to come back.
So has there been one thing, one person who turned your head round, as it were?
Yeah, it was my coach, my old coach, Old Fischer, told me, and the new coach, David Lewis, told me that I did something wrong, and I recognize that now and know what I did wrong, and I won't do it again.
Henrik Driekman due out in what we think will be about 7 minutes on centre court, but Peter Fleming, is that the case for a lot of young players? They do well in a big tournament and then they think they've arrived already and they fall off?
I suppose it happens for some people. A lot of it depends on what are your ambitions. I know that a goal that I had for a long time in my career was to make it to the top 10, and I played really well for a while and got into the top 10, and probably in hindsight could have gone higher, could have gone up to 5, say, and maybe stayed there for a while, but at that point, you know, I took my foot off the gas pedal almost, and dropped out of the top 10 and never made it back up there again. And you know, a lot of times you take things for granted. You expect that yeah, fine, I can do this. You know, I did it once, and really, what you realize is you had the feeling, and when it goes away, it's not so easy just to get it back. You can't put it on like it's like a raincoat or something.
What's the key to doing well and then keep going step by step? Is it maybe have a coach travelling with you all the time, or have a mentor you can call up or you can relate to very well?
Well, I suppose if the coach is a good coach, I mean, I'm not sure. There is no one set formula that you can use. I mean, everyone will have a different formula that'll work, and really, the key is to keep going, I suppose.
Okay, let's look at Marc Rosset for a short while. Do you think he's #1 material? He's been in the top 10, but we talk about someone like Andrei Medvedev maybe being too intelligent to play tennis. Is Rosset not intelligent enough to get right to the top without being cruel?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm the person to talk about anyone's intelligence, but I don't see Marc Rosset being #1 in the world, because I don't think he carries himself like a #1. I don't think he sees himself as a #1 in the world, which is more importantly, it doesn't matter what I think, but I don't think he thinks that he can be #1 in the world. And you know, he's a great player, 6'7" tall with a giant serve, moves very well, and it has very solid ground strokes. Only when you see him compete against the top players in the big occasions, he just falls short, and unless something changes inside his head, no, I don't see him becoming #1.
He defies that theory that big men can't play on clay, though, doesn't he? 6'7".
Exactly right. He plays very well on clay. In fact, it's his best surface. He won the Olympics on clay, and it's interesting. You know, I hated playing on clay simply because I couldn't slide.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, because I couldn't slide. I mean, that was the problem, and it's difficult, more difficult for big guys to slide, just because the lower your center of gravity, the easier it is. But a guy like Rosset does it very well, and who knows, maybe he skied when he was 2 years old or something, and really developed good balance. But he is a great clay court player.
He'd have been brought up on this surface, wouldn't he? Coming from Switzerland, being born in Geneva, he'd have grown up on this on the red clay. Is that what is essential for being a good clay courter, to learn from a very early age?
Well, I'm sure it certainly helps. It's anyone who the surface you learn on becomes the natural surface. I grew up on clay, though, but became a tennis player on a hard court. So I think you can't narrow it down to that. I think his body works on clay. He figured out how to do it, and that's the result.
Okay, we can cross over live now to Geneva. Players are out on court. There's Henrik Driekman just starting their warm-up. 116 in the world, Driekman, but he's going to have nothing to lose. We're going to take a quick break. Coming up, Switzerland against Germany.